So Astrobot is a polished, fun game. It's a pure gameplay fun game. Like, I have seen this argument be made now for Astrobot on my video, on Reddit, Risco, whatever. Everyone has the exact same argument, which basically is a non-argument. You're saying that the game is just fun, that I am seriously questioning if half the comment on my last video are just ass-turfing bots, because everyone writes the same thing. Like, Astrobot is just pure joy, right? Astrobot is just fun to play, right? It's not fun to play. Astrobot was pure fun. See, this is like insane. It's kind of the same thing. Astrobot is just fun, it's polished and fun. Everyone keeps saying the thing, right? So again, I genuinely do question, like, wait, is this like half just bots or something? Because they always have the same mantra of words, keep saying over and over again. But it also made me really think about it, because obviously, I don't hate Astrobot. I keep saying I don't hate the game, but for me, it's sort of clearly not a very special game, right? For me, it's very clearly not the game of the year, because it's just a game, right? That is, again, somewhat fun. So I was thinking about, like, what? Yeah, that's it, right? The game is just fun, and that's kind of it, right? Astrobot is just fun. Now, of course, games should be fun, right? And if you can break down here, that I think is very, very particularly, honestly, a lot of people defend the game by saying that it's fun. To me, also means you guys are not playing fun games otherwise, which is kind of weird. But ignoring that for now, the general issue of Astrobot is that it's just fun, right? It doesn't bring you anything else. And what I mean by that is that, for example, imagining, this is a very simple comparison. Imagine you had Astrobot, set-up game, but it also had a really good storyline and a meaningful characters and story, and it, right? That would mean that you play the game, some amount of hours or whatever, and after you've beaten that game, right, you will remember the characters and the great story and so on. That's a better game, right? Astrobot is purely only this one fun factor gameplay. It's very, very simplistic, right? And I'm not saying the game is bad because it's simple. I'm just saying that it only has, exactly again, one kind of fun factor. And that is why everyone defending the game just keeps saying that, oh, it's just fun and polished, right? Because no one can say, oh, it's a fun game, and the storyline is great, and this mechanic is awesome, and the mod play is awesome, right? No, because it only has one kind of single-player typical platforming thing that is fun. And again, I'm not saying that this like platform element here, typical, platform Mario-ish, right? I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm just saying that isn't that kind of forthcoming why the game shouldn't have won? Why it isn't that kind of a good game? Because no, it only has that thing, right? And it's so clear, so I still am kind of wondering if half the people defending this game are just bots, but regardless not, it kind of shows you that you can't actually argue anything else about the game, except that it's just, decent one kind of gameplay, right? And it really bothers me because there's something really wrong, I feel, with this whole defending Astrobot. And I really mean that, because one thing, right, talk about last in the video, is the whole idea that all the games are not fun. That to me is actually really concerning, and I think it goes back to the people that actually play really terrible games, right? The games aren't fun. And for me, though, personally, right, is that I have played a bunch of games this year. I think it's been a very, very strong year of gaming, right? I love many games this year. And again, I don't hate this game, but I keep saying it's just, honestly, a short platform game. Right? It's only like 10 hours, and it's very easy. It's quite easy. And it's like, I have played other games that I have enjoyed also every minute of the game, but that I also got, a storyline, characters, and I would actually remember those games, next year, right? This game I have forgotten about basically the next day, right? Because it's just a platform game, and it doesn't have anything else there. It's really strange to me. So this video here, guys, I hope you guys with me here now. I'm gonna break it down now from an academic standpoint. What are the kinds of fun we have, okay? And I'm gonna explain you straight up why this game shouldn't have won, right? Because it doesn't have more than one fun fact. Like, for example, imagine you're playing a really good role-playing game that is fun all the way through, and it also has a great storyline, right? Like, for example, I would much rather see Metamorphosis Fantasia win, which I think is a much better game than Astrobot, right? For example, right? And I'll bring it up immediately, because I'm also really tired of everyone saying, oh, you just want Wukong to win. That's some kind of argument. I said very clearly in my last video that it's not about Wukong not winning, it's about Astrobot not deserving to win, right? Then I have a bunch of other games that I have enjoyed this year a lot, right? and I would argue for, has a much better gameplay than Astrobot. And I have to say too, I commented later in the video, that they're also much, much longer. Like, I loved every goddamn second of playing Romancing Saga 2. Amazing game, right? But the game is like 6 or 7 times longer than Astrobot. And it's polished, if it's amazing, super freedom, yada yada, right? Like, why would I think Astrobot is the best game this year? I think it's just like a joke, honestly, that is one, right? But anyway, let's break it down from an academical standpoint. Pokemon in World of Warcraft. Now, obviously World of Warcraft has way more budget and has like DLCs or whatever for many, many years, but Pokemon inside of World of Warcraft is a perfect example of a game having more fun factors, a game having more gameplay experiences, right? And Astrobot is really, really lacking here. We compare the Warcraft to start them because everyone has played or at least heard about World of Warcraft. So in gaming, you have what's called 8 fun factors. I have argued in a paper like 20 years ago there should be 9 fun factors. And I also was at a conference early this year where this professor, she had made her own 9 fun factors, and her newest one was like FOMO, which was really weird. So it's obviously not exactly like perfect size, but basically what you have is that you have a bunch of different things how you can argue and say this is why a game is fun or not, right? So look at Astrobot. Astrobot is really fun in one kind of way, right? The problem, of course, immediately here is that Astrobot is only fun in one kind of way. So one fun factor, the biggest one, is challenge fun factor. That's the one that most games, of course, has, right? A game as a challenge, so that you overcome, of course. Another fun factor is submission fun factor. This fun factor is basically like playing the game as pastime. Usually it be something like pottering, so a game like Stardew Valley, or similar other farming games, so right, farming simulator. Game you kind of play as, you know, calming down, kind of mentally, so right, and so forth. And we're not going to go over all the different fun factors, or the newer ones, or whatever. My point is that because Astrobot is just a limited game, right? It's only a 10-hour game, it's only a platforming game, so to speak. You will only have more or less 1 or 2 fun factors, right? But World of Warcraft then is the ultimate example of nothing like Astrobot, right? Because in World of Warcraft you have the general gameplay of like leveling up your character, finding loot or whatever. Then you have all these like, you know, side mini games inside of the game. Like, for example, the Pokemon thing. You have the mythical raiding, which is very hard. It's like, you know, there's a shared fun factor. It has mythical raiding with a bunch of players, right? That means you have one of the fun factors, which is communication, or rather like friendship, leadership, that kind of thing, right? Collaboration, fun factor, and so forth, right? So World of Warcraft, being this massive, giant game, of course, are basically fulfilling all fun factors, 9, 10, or whatever, on the same time. Of course, not exactly the same time, because you can't both be doing like a farming thing, like collecting all the pets or whatever, and also fighting the harder boss. Of course not. But the game has all of it inside of it, right? That is something that Astrobot is severely lacking. Astrobot is just 1 out of like at least 8 fun factors. I've argued for 9 at least. So it's like, that's not a very good game in my opinion, right? And if you look then at something like Baldur's Gate 3, it has obviously more than 1 fun factor, right? It has the storyline, the narration, of course, is a fun factor. Playing a game, learning about the characters and the journeys, right? The storyline is having so on, that's 1 fun factor. Astrobot doesn't have it, right? Replayability, playing the game in different ways, you know, doing different stuff, right? Obviously, Baldur's Gate 3 is an amazing game to replay. I played over 300 hours, so you can replay it many times, different builds, be evil, be good, and so forth, right? So you can experience the same boss battle very differently, you can experience the same dialogue very differently, you can skip over half the game, and so forth, right? You get my point. So already at this point, Baldur's Gate 3 is objectively way better than Astrobot, because Astrobot only gives me 1 gameplay experience, right? This game here gives me like 3 or 4 already at that point. Like, it's so much better. And then Baldur's Gate 3 also is very free, right? You can do a lot of very D&D feeling stuff. You can build stuff, do traps. You can fight in so many different ways, right? Like, before you fight the boss, you can like destroy a ladder and this thing and that thing, get a pet over there, do a bomb or something. So it gives you that freedom of expression factor, which is also something you can argue Patrick has that, but not really, right? It has the tinkering, the building, right? Typical role-playing element, which a lot of people like. I loved it, right? You know, min-maxing and so on. It's also another fun factor, right? So, no, Baldur's Gate 3 has like a bunch of different gameplay experiences that Astrobot doesn't even remotely have, right? I would say Baldur's Gate 3 is like 10 times better than Astrobot, at least. Like, it's not even remotely close. I hope people get what I mean here. Just having a good, interesting storyline and characters makes a game better, right? It's pure gameplay. Now, let's talk about a game that I think should have won, perhaps then, the best game this year. Yakuza 8, Infinitive. Okay, why? And this is, I think, from any kind of objective standpoint, a much, much better game than Astrobot, right? So first of all, okay, it is polished. It's fun to play the game. The whole game is really, really fun. It's about amazing main character. So you're enjoying the whole game from start to finish, right? So again, the whole, oh, but Astrobot is fun from the beginning. This game was also fun every second I played the game. Very, very fun game, okay? That's one thing. Now, the main storyline in this game is like really long. So you have like 100 hours of almost main storyline. Okay, much, much longer than Astrobot. And honestly, length of game value has to have some value, right? If I'm paying like $60 for either of the games, this game is like 10 times longer than Astrobot, well, there's much more value for that, right? However, you have, of course, the classic, turn-based JRPG fighting, right? And I understand people, of course, say they hate it or whatever, but just, if you like this kind of gameplay, is great, right? And you have that, okay, turn-based gameplay. That's a cool gameplay of the game. Okay, fine. So if you like the genre, that's fun, okay? However, also have this weird, like, tourist island building mini-gameplay, which is, like, longer than Astrobot. This whole mini-game is, like, longer than the whole game of Astrobot, okay? And this was really fun mini-game. Kind of like Animal Crossing kind of thing. Amazingly fun. And then you have World of Warcraft. It also has its own, like, Pokemon, clone in the game, like Sugimon League. So, I hope, as I my point, right? I mean, if you like this genre of, like, role-playing game, because I can see, obviously, all of them being like, well, I don't like the genre, so then Astrobot better. But, everyone doesn't like platform games, right? So that argument doesn't make any sense. But I can definitely see people saying that, no, Astrobot is better because it's actually fun. I don't like, turn-based games or whatever. But it's like, no, but that's like a nonsense argument, right? It's a nonsense argument because not everyone does not like Mario or Sonic or whatever, right? They really don't. I know a lot of people that hate platform games. And a lot of people that hate Astrobot. Like, they actually hate playing it because they don't find it fun, right? You know what I mean? But assuming then that you like the genre, right? Assuming you like the genre of, in Astrobot's case, platforming. In Yakuza case, of course, turn-based role-playing game, right? Assuming you like the genre of the gameplay, okay, fine. Then, obviously, Yakuza 8 is a much better game because it gives you that, and it also gives you another gameplay, right? This thing then, with similar kind of conceptual genre. Then it gives you a completely other game. The tourist thing is just very, very different. It's a kind of real-time fighting into some kind of money management thing. It's very, very different. And then, of course, Yakuza 8 has like another 50 mini-games, like crazy food, like, I can build like a tax and so forth, right? So it's so much more value for your money. So much more value inside one game, right? Astrobot, honestly, is a glorified tech demo. I said it, no, but think about it. From like a gaming standpoint, it only is this platform game thing, right? Which is great, and it's polished, but it's only 10 hours, roughly, right? It's not even that hard, which I think is definitely a drawback for me personally. And then we can disagree and argue, right? Is it better or is it harder? I would say Astrobot, for me, as a platform game itself, isn't even that perfect then, because I would prefer it be much, much harder. And I prefer having, other stages, right? Which would be much more challenging. So now, I think there are other platform games which I have enjoyed playing more for that matter as well, right? But I hope you understand my point here, right? What I'm trying to make here is just like, no. When you look at what is the best game, or what is a game as a complete, right? You have to look at the full package, right? And I don't think that a game being longer makes it better. For example, I have played Baldur's Gate 3 for 318 hours. So it's a really great game, right? However, then, if I go to Street Fighter 6, which you have here, I have played that game for 523 hours, right? That's a lot of hours, okay? I have played Street Fighter 6 more than I played Baldur's Gate 3. Almost double the amount of hours, right? And there's a lot of hours, both of them clearly. Both released last year, of course, but I would not say that Street Fighter 6 is a better game than Baldur's Gate 3, right? Because Baldur's Gate 3 has so much more content, right? storyline, characters, agent, blah blah blah, so forth. Right? That's why I'm back at Astrobot, right? Because Astrobot has even less than Street Fighter 6, right? So no, it's just about the whole game time. But honestly, to be God, let's be honest with people. Polishing 10 hours of just one kind of gameplay, and that's it. No storyline, no real characters, no meaningful depth to the game, no builds, no whatever, no optional freedom, whatever, right? No real change to the gameplay. It's not that hard, okay? I'm saying it, not that hard, right? I have worked on many games in my life, and obviously it is harder making a video game. So I made a game that has like 18 single play stages, so the game. And then you also have this multiplayer, right? You have to balance the multiplayer. You have a bunch of different multiplayer stages, and you have all these units and all this fort, right? It takes a lot more time to, polish a game, right? That is mostly a multiplayer game that also has single player, and vice versa, so forth, right? The more stuff you add into the game, the harder it gets, right? I am, honestly, again, as opposed to have to admit, not very impressed by someone polishing only 10 hours of gameplay, right? And I also, like I said earlier, I don't buy the whole argument either saying that with Astrobot is just a fun game and polished. Well, yeah, but so is Romance Sega 7, so is Yakuza, so is Metaphor, right? So is Unicorn Overload. I can sit there and say a bunch of other games that I found more polished and more fun to play than this game. Stellar Blade, I found really polished gameplay. There is one game this year that's really good, polished actual gameplay, combat gameplay, Stellar Blade, right? Said in the last video too, Wukong is a great game. It's a very, very good game. But the actual combat of that game is not as good as Stellar Blade. Said in that video, right? So it's no, Stellar Blade is incredibly polished when it comes to the actual meat of the game, right? The combat system. So no, why would I say this game here is better than Stellar Blade? Which I would argue easily the Stellar Blade is more polished than Astrobot. It's also a much longer game. It has storyline, it has characters, yada yada, so forth, right? Now, of course, you could say that Stellar Blade doesn't have the best story ever. I'm not claiming it has either. I don't think it's the best story, but it has a story. Astrobot is just like Sony PlayStation commercial. It has I seen that before. That's Klaus Ford. Yeah, it's it has member berries. Yeah, member berries. It's well, that's not much. So no, I think it's very, very strange, honestly, to claim that this game is the best game ever. And I want to iterate the point, though, that I think it's very, very silly, where people are saying that if you don't like this to be the best game, it is because Wukong didn't win, right? So this guy here, I think is a perfect example of what I'm referring to, right? So in my last video, I never once said that I think that Wukong should have won, right? No, I think Wukong is a great game, get me wrong, I like Wukong a lot. But I never said that. And you can see in the video here, I would much rather prefer, for example, Yakuza 8 to win over Wukong, right? Because while I think Wukong is a great game, I think Wukong, for example, lacks, the other kind of gameplay as referred to, right? Mini games, or the side content, and so forth, right? But I think Wukong has more than just the core loop, because it has these anime cutscenes. There's a lot of religious interesting points of it. There's a lot of philosophy behind stuff in Wukong, some details. And there's more value to Wukong than just pure combat gameplay, right? Definitely. And also different builds and so forth as well, right? So I'm not saying that it only has that. But my point is that I never said that I found Wukong to be necessarily the best game, even though I definitely think it is one of the better games, of course. But that's why I think it's so funny to we see these kind of comments, right? This is the worst kind of defensive course for Astrobot, right? This guy here is trying to defend Astrobot by obviously first of attacking a standpoint that I don't even have, right? But if you had that standpoint, this is never how you should defend whatever, right? Because if you try to defend a thing and you're attacking me because I like beating, that's not a defense of a thing. This is, whatever. It's a really weird way to do it. But I think it's extra fun if I bring it up, right? Because this is actually not even my standpoint. And usually on a note here, if you ever go and read YouTube comments, for me it's very obvious that almost all the comments comment before they watch the video. You know what I mean? Half the comments on this video haven't even seen the video, right? A lot of people are commenting almost all about Wukong, right? And I'm just But in the video, I clearly say that I think Stellar Blade is better, so I don't even know why you guys are... it's like, have you seen the video? No, you haven't, right? You haven't. But I think it's a great way to talk about it too, because this also feels an issue, right? People are basically celebrating Astrobot, I think in a lot of ways, in a very disingenuous way as well then, right? And again, I'm not saying Astrobot is a bad game, I'm not saying it's not fun or whatever, but I'm just saying that a lot of people, right, and this is obviously, I would only say the majority of people that are now defending Astrobot are not doing it because they even played the game, because they even liked it. No, they're doing it because they hate Wukong, right, or whatever, mostly, or perhaps on Stellar Blade, but they used to hate, you know, the, oh no, these are the incel gamergate people or whatever, so they just want to, like, diss those games. And for me, I mean, a game, for example, that I enjoyed more than either of those games were Remastered Sega 7, right? That game was great. I also liked it a lot more than Metamorphosis, released the same month there, this last month. Amazing game. You should play it. Such a good game. And so I was like, okay, but that's not my standpoint at all. And also some extent why I brought up Yakuza 8 in details here in this video. Because I'm like, but I have said many times over this year that I think Yakuza 8 is a better game than either of these two games. But anyway, let's talk about my last point though, which I find just kind of generally sad when it comes to this thing, and that's like how people don't seem to actually play good games at all. So I do feel a little bit like Ichiban, honestly, in this like shocked face here on the beach of Hawaii when I am reading people defend Astrobot, okay? And I really mean it, right? And this will be its own video, so I will say it here briefly, guys. But there are so many good games out there, okay? Stop playing these sluggish, terrible AAA games. I mean, honestly, I think a big reason these hardcore Sony fanboys are defend Astrobot so hard is because they're basically too used to playing like terrible Sony AAA games like Horizon, which I think is like terrible game. It's incredibly boring. And a lot of people are stuck in these games, but you start playing a game like Horizon, and it is fun for like the first few hours, the first game of it. And then, you know, you just gotta keep playing it because you bought the game, right? And I was just kind of sad by it. Because I see so many people defend this game, and I'm thinking like, wait, do you guys only buy really terrible AAA games that are just endlessly bloated? Like, for example, then Horizon, but also Assassin's Creed games, all Ubisoft games? I mean, then I can see it, honestly. Because I really do wonder, so leave a comment below, guys. Is the only reason you actually find Astrobot fun because it's just like gameplay? It's just good gameplay, and you're so used to playing these like really sluggish Ubisoft shit games that you're like, oh my god, this game is just a gameplay, right? Because when I see people defending Astrobot, say it's the best game ever, it is mostly because if they only have played Ubisoft Garfield game for the last 10 years. Again, I'm not saying Astrobot is a boring game, it's a bad game or not. I'm just saying that, yeah, it's fun, and I'm just really wondering, I'm genuinely really wondering when I see the most people defending the game and say that, well, this game actually was fun. Like, it's an argument. Because I only play fun games, okay? I only play fun games, guys. So I don't know what you are doing, but I think that most people that like Astrobot is because you're too stuck in playing these really bad games, okay? This year had a lot of good games. For example, Unicorn Overlord. Remastered Sega 2, another hardcore good gameplay game. Constantly good action, hard game, amazing freedom, high replayability, etc. I'm not going to list all the games I enjoyed this year. There'll be another like top 10 video, whatever, coming later. But my point is that I feel I'm taking crazy pills. I feel like I am taking goddamn crazy pills when I see people defend Astrobot and say that, oh, it's actually fun. Well, stop playing these shitty AAA sluggish games that are just bloated at it, you know? There shouldn't be an argument to say that, well, this game is fun. But it's not an argument. Every game you're playing is supposed to be fun, right? Now, of course, you can play a horror game, and horror games are scaring you, but then you want to be scared, right? Or whatever. But you're supposed to play them because they're fun. So every time I see someone defending Astrobot, we say, oh, it's fun. Well, it's so much fun, babe, that I'm absolutely imagining that you're only playing bloated AAA games, right? Which aren't fun, right? Some AAA games are fun, but it is certainly an issue with these games. And again, like I said, this can be like a very old video, could put many hours. But there's certainly an issue, right? With these games that are high cost production, they cost billions of dollars to make. I'm kidding, but point. It costs much money to make. The developers tend to focus on where we have to make the game really long, right? And tedious and all this stuff, right? But the thing is that you can easily find this year alone, or the years too, right? You can easily find games this year that have more than 10 hours of polished gameplay, right? And I would argue for that every game this year that has more of a game length than Astrobot and it's still fun and polished is a better game, right? Because it costs roughly the same amount of money. And that is, I think that is a truth to it. You can't just sit there and say that the best game because it's so short or whatever, or so blah, it's fun, so on. Because I keep saying it and I keep iterating this point, right? Like I feel like I'm taking crazy pills, but I have found games this year. For example, then my last game that I really loved, right? Sega, amazing game. That game I found more enjoyable to play every minute of that game than Astrobot. Felt more fun to play. And the game is like, I don't know, 6 or 7 times longer, right? And it's a one playthrough. And you can replay it many times because you have different orders and options and blah blah so forth. So if you like beat the whole game twice to replay it, at least 2 full playthroughs to get everything in the game, right? So it's like, 12 times longer than Astrobot? Yet it's polished and really fun? Wow. You know what I mean? So no, I can't see Astrobot wins, but I hope you guys are with me here in the video at the end here. I hope you guys think about what I said right now, right? And I will trigger some people. Oh, you hate us, whatever. But I honestly feel concerned for you guys. I genuinely feel concerned for you guys sitting here saying that Astrobot is basically the only fun game you played, right? Because then I just keep thinking that stop playing games like Horizon, okay? There are actually good games out there. And honestly, what do you guys think? That maybe not all Astrobot fans then. Because I think that there is definitely truth to it that Astrobot is a game that has been, obviously it's a Sony flagship game, right? Made by Sony and it's their own console and so on. I think that Astrobot has reached a lot of sales to, let's call it for better lack of terms, normies. And because Astrobot is a lot of normies that normally only play games like Horizon, they're actually surprised how fun it is. But for people like me, right, they play all the games. For me, it's just like, oh, it's like a mediocre platform game. That's kind of how I feel about it. I'm like, yeah, it's just a decent platform game. I shouldn't be harsh on it, but get a point. I'm just like, for me, it's just like, yeah, obviously it's way more fun than Horizon or Assassin's Creed or whatnot, right? It absolutely is much better than those games, but I hate these games, right? I hate Horizon, I hate Assassin's Creed, and so forth, right? And not because of just a thing, it's a side note. Not because, I always hated Assassin's Creed, yeah. Hated it for the last 10 years, I hate Ubisoft games, horrible. There's a new Star Wars game, horrible game, terrible, yeah. I hate all those games. So I'm just like, no, like this is like, have you guys not played all the games? And to some extent, maybe they haven't, right? To some extent, maybe they have only played these terrible, bloated games for the last years. And I forgot about Switches, right? I mean, I play on my Switch every day, I play on my Nintendo a lot, right? I still play all the Mario games and whatever. So one of the best games last year, of course, was Mario Wonder. That game is great, Yeah, like, it feels as if people haven't played a fun, like, Nintendo game for a decade or something. I don't know, but I want to feel sorry about it. But I still think an interesting point to make, right? You're like, but this is actually a big issue. Right, like you start playing better games, right? Like why do you keep playing these bloated games for? And in that way, Astrobot winning might be good, right? Because you can argue that people are gonna realize that, the developers, but I don't think so. Astrobot still is a big commercial game for Sony, and it's still a Triple A game. No matter how you twist around, Astrobot is produced by the biggest player in the industry, right? Or one of the bigger ones, but the one, right? The main ones, the consoles. So it's not that good in that sense. If an indie game had won, it would be. If Astrobot was an indie game completely out of nowhere, it would be much more interesting, I think. But anyway, I will be subscribed, and have a great day.